Thanks so much for being with us here on Atlanta News First Plus. I'm Joy Lim Nakrin, joined today by attorney Holly Waltman. Thank you so much for being with us. So Holly and I have been speaking about a couple of the top legal stories that we've been following. First of all, want to talk about, as the Democratic National Convention is underway, these claims by former President Donald Trump that Ms. Harris and her team, her camp, have essentially perpetrated a coup against President Joe Biden by persuading him to end his re-election effort. He said, quote, Mr. Trump said, quote, it really is a threat to democracy. It was a coup by people that wanted him out, is what he told a news conference at a country club in Bedminster, New Jersey. And Holly, I want to ask, I mean, is there any legal basis for this claim?
So as it stands right now, what we know, and simply just off of the remarks of former President Donald Trump, I don't believe we have something that rises to the level of an investigation into a coup, right? There are certain checks and balances, the Democratic Convention being one of them, right, where the party officially nominates someone to run in this position is occurring, and there are checks and balances that go along with that. So the persuasion to convince President Joe Biden to step down and not seek re-election could just be that, persuasion, right? So based on just the comments that former President Donald Trump mentioned, I don't see something that's going to bust open a huge investigation into a potential coup here.
Yeah, it's certainly what I've been hearing as I've been reading different analysis. You know, speaking of Mr. Trump, it's been a little more than a year now since Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis announced the charges against him here in a massive election interference case. And, you know, we talked about it when the anniversary came, that at this time, you know, last year, Ms. Willis said that she expected to be in trial, right? That we would already be seeing a trial against a former president right now. Obviously, that hasn't happened. The case is stuck in the Court of Appeals. Would you say that the case is even further behind than when it started?
Yeah, I certainly think that it definitely is further behind than when it started. And I don't know that anyone besides Ms. Willis and possibly the inner workings of her office truly thought that this case would actually charge forward to trial in such a small amount of time. Based simply on the severity of the allegations, the sheer number of co-defendants involved in a trial of this magnitude, it was never going to launch when they thought it would actually start. And then when you add on to it the inner workings of her relationship with the special prosecutor, Nathan Wade, and how that got unveiled and brought to the court's attention, certainly now we are in what is going to be a very long standstill, even after the Court of Appeals finishes with their evaluation of these motions and these decisions. There still exists, and there is still a great chance that there will be a review of those decisions and or ancillary topics or issues that are brought up for review.
Yeah, so obviously there are numerous criminal cases that the former president is facing. Of course, in New York, there was a conviction. He was actually convicted on 34 counts related to falsifying business records in New York, and the sentencing is scheduled for next month. We saw that the case involving, the federal case involving special counsel Jack Smith, I mean, the charges there were dropped. So how does all of this impact what's happening here in Fulton County? Does it?
It definitely does impact it in some way. A good prosecutor's office is always being conscious and good stewards of the resources that they have from the taxpayers. Judicial economy, right? If former President Donald Trump gets sentenced in New York and gets a substantial amount of time in custody, or has some sort of punitive thing that happens to him in that case, that definitely could affect their decision in Atlanta to move forward on these charges. And we also have to point out and remind our viewers, Joy, that Ms. Willis is also fighting for her job this fall. And I think that there are opponents that have spoken out and said that not only this case, but other large RICO cases that are currently being pursued in her office will be reviewed again to see if, in fact, this is in the pursuit of justice for these defendants.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the Trump prosecution?
I think that this will be something that if Ms. Willis retains her job and the case charges forward, we will see for, again, another year or two just lingering before we have any sort of conclusion.
Yeah, all right. Of course, we're going to be watching it closely. I also want to pick your brain about the latest on the YSL trial. Again, this is a historically long trial that we have been covering gavel to gavel here on Atlanta News First Plus. And, we're talking about another delay. I mean, not only another, well, there have been multiple delays, but the latest is that this week there are a series of motions hearings, and the jury's not hearing evidence this week. This was already pre-scheduled under the initial judge, Earl Glanville. But one of the motions that the court is considering right now has to do with, frankly, all the delays and the time that the prosecution is taking and is allowed to take to make their case. The defense filed this motion, which says in part, as this court has broad discretion to exercise reasonable control over the presentation of witnesses and evidence, the court should use that discretion to prevent this trial from stretching indefinitely and beyond the reaches of time due to the state's unpreparedness and inefficiency. This is a defense motion, and presentation of cumulative evidence causing undue delay, poor decision making by the jury, as well as harm to Kendrick. Kendrick being Diamante Kendrick, aka Yak Gotti, whose lawyers actually filed this motion. So, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, do they have actually a valid argument given how long this has taken?
Well, certainly, any attorney with a bar license has the duty and the candor to the court and the obligation to the court to only file motions that they believe they have a factual basis to move forward on. This is sort of an interesting situation because while this break was scheduled by the first judge, we now have the third judge trying to navigate and be a referee, right? She needs to be fair to the jury who has given up a huge amount of their life, their livelihood, their work schedules. Every part of their life has been affected by this abnormally long trial and this duty to serve on a jury. So I do think that it is in good faith that the defense bar is bringing up these issues to this judge. Not only is it a different judge with possibly a different opinion on what is reasonable, what is not reasonable, what is the length of time that she can confine them to or not. And the thing that is really important here to evaluate and look at, the state has brought in expert after expert after expert, and a lot of this testimony that they are eliciting sometimes hasn't gone the way that they've expected it. And so in an attempt to try and recover from some of the, I guess, derailments that they have faced, they start bringing in cumulative witnesses to testify to the same or very similar things that have already been testified to. One of my great mentors said, if you cannot present your case to a fifth grader in a simple and direct way, then you kind of already lost your jury. And so this is the state's way, from my perspective at least, to try and clean up some of the things that they didn't see coming or didn't anticipate from their witness testimony. And it does present a great opportunity for the defense side of this trial to give these options to the judge, who is now new in the game and the newest player in these parts of this party.
Yeah. And, can you believe that it actually started November of last year? And the jury selection was the longest in history, and then now we are in the case in chief, and we've already been through 3 different judges. So any other thoughts on this in terms of the outlook of this case?
Yeah, I think that there needs to be a very serious examination. The state has still said that they have over 100 more witnesses that they plan to bring to testify. At this rate, with the speed in which they're going through these witnesses, there's no end in sight. And that truly is, it goes to the very basis of due process, having the right to have your allegations proven by the state or disproven, right? To be set free of these sort of things. And another thing that is super important to remember that we haven't talked about at least today, these defendants are in custody, right?
Yes.
And they have been in custody since these allegations were brought out in the very beginning, before an indictment, before a jury was chosen, before any witness was sworn. They have been in custody every single night, right? And the challenges that presents on not just the defense attorneys trying to meet with their clients and have adequate access to them, but just also the stress related to everything else involved in the case, I think is also at the essence of these defense motions.
Yeah, absolutely. Attorney Holly Waltman, so appreciate your expertise and analysis. Before we let you go, can you share a little bit about what kind of cases you're interested in taking and what your practice areas are?
Yeah, certainly. So we have 2 offices in the metro Atlanta area. We travel all over the state to represent anyone who has been arrested or is being charged by the government on any level. I do state court cases, superior court cases, and federal court cases. My complex felony cases are probably my favorite because I find them most interesting. And we can be found at thewaltmanfirm.com. And our phone number is 770-235-1015.
Thank you so much, Attorney Holly Waltman, joining us live here on Atlanta News First Plus. Just a reminder for our viewers, please download our free app and you can get updates on all the top stories and weather sent right to your phone. Thanks for joining us.